Hey guys, been asked what my skill customization looks like, and I can understand why you'd want to see it. Maybe it can help you out. But before we get into each of the weapons, let me give you a few things to note. This is, again, like my build, not optimized. I am simply looking for the following things. Speed, variety, flashiness, that's it. This isn't about being effective whatsoever. If it happens to be effective, cool. But again, I'm looking for the fun factor, and that fun factor is very subjective. In general, when it comes to my stance play, this is what I like to have. In low stance, I generally have the super fast moves. High stance, I tend to have powerful or long animation moves. And then in mid stance, I tend to have situational moves. But again, this is not a hard rule. I don't care about that. It just seems to be a trend, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So let's start with the sword. First thing with the sword, when it comes to the grapples, I'm going to go with the Zuna drop because I'm a Ninja Gaiden fan. That is the biggest reason. I could go with Dragon Fang in terms of key recovery and anima generation, but I don't really care about that. The Zuna drop's the way for me to go. When it comes to Mystic Arts, I know that sort of execution does a bunch of damage, but if you know me by now, I don't care about damage. Anything that gives me utility, I'm going to take that over damage in a heartbeat. So Sword of Salvation does that. While I don't get any bonus from having an extended Timely Guard window because that's already on my character, I get less key consumption. If something reduces key, I'm going to take it. So that's why Sword of Salvation. Now let's get to high stance. Another thing in general when it comes to stances is that if I see a high stance only maneuver, I generally will take that over something I can put into other stances. So that's why I picked Morning Moon over Swallow's Wing. I don't know if I've seen anyone do high stance Swallow's Wing, but I'll just go with Morning Moon. Shadow Sword, there's no choice. When it comes to the quick draws, it doesn't matter which stance you put it in, so it's really down to preference. I put Night Rain in high stance. I've seen people put Night Rain in mid stance and low stance. It really doesn't matter. It's just whatever you're comfortable with, so I just put it in high stance. It does a lot of hits. I guess that's a high stance thing. It doesn't matter. Sword has a lot of different options for the L1 triangle slot. I generally try to avoid using these unless the skills that are for a weapon either don't exist in that slot or I don't find those skills particularly interesting. It's a very subjective factor. In this case for high stance, I use Flowing Shadow. I used to use Sword of Meditation, but I'll explain why I haven't been using that when I get to mid stance. So yeah, Flowing Shadow is here. Pretty much it. For high stance, Sword got 3 new moves for the L1 square slot. I put Kurama Sword Dance because it has a very long animation and I think it's very powerful. Through and through, no choice, so that's pretty much all of high stance. When it comes to mid stance, I use Kick because I generally like to put key damage things in mid stance anyway. So Kick goes here and I give it Masterful Slice so it can do even more key damage, which is great. Shadow Sword, no choice. I've already accounted for Night Rain, so I'm going to pick either Quick Draw or Tiger Sprint. I see Tiger Sprint as more of a situational thing, so I put it in mid stance. When it comes to the L1 triangle stuff, there are even more options for the sword. You've got Water Shadow, which is a fantastic parry, but the thing is I'm kind of moving away from using parries, even though they're awesome. It's just sometimes I can parry fish and I just don't want to wait around. So I'd rather use something more aggressive. Now, I used to use Sword of Meditation here almost all the damn time. It was great in Nioh 1. And I will probably revisit using this yet again for maximum disrespect. But Reverse Impact is new. So I'm going to use a new ability. It's a lot of fun for me to use. So that's why it's there. Here, there's also 2 parries. You've got Haze, but again, same reasons. I'm not using Water Shadow, I'm not going to use Haze, and I'm not going to use Leaf Glide. I'm going to pick either Severing Spin or Blue Moon, and honestly, I just alternate between the two. I use Blue Moon Omni Slice quite a bit, so now I've just been messing with Severing Spin. There's really no other reason for it. Through and through, no choice. Same things with Backwave Tempest. On to low stance. Swallow's Wing, because I've already accounted for Kick. No choice. Here there's really good options. There's Heaven Flash and then there's Swift Step. Both really amazing abilities and do really unique things. But I have a preference for Heaven Flash since I'm more familiar with it, bottom line. I don't care about the damage so much. I like the fact you can jump over things. So yeah, I put Nimble Slice on it, so I use even less ki. And then I've already accounted for the other two sheathed abilities, so Quick Draw goes here. And then I use Sword Ki because Sword Ki into Sword of Celerity is pretty dope. So I like to have that on low stance. Again, the placement doesn't really matter. And then last but not least, I could use one of the super long animation things, and that's why I swap between Severing Spin and Blue Moon in mid stance. But Sword of Discernment, especially after the buffs, courtesy of patch 1.22, is lightning fast, even faster than this tooltip suggests. So I'm going to use that. Then True and Through, there's no choice, and same thing with Tempest, you don't really have a choice. Next up is Dual Swords. So Dual Swords, I don't actually play that often, but when it comes to Dual Swords, there's a Grapple or Dragon Claw, and the only reason I'm not using Dragon Claw is simply because I like fast animation things. So Grapple is slightly faster, so I'm going to use that. And then when it comes to this, it's Mystic Art, Momentum versus Firm Resolve. Both are really cool, but I don't care about taking less damage because that's not that big of a deal to me. I'd rather be able to attack more, so that's why I use Momentum, because it reduces the ki usage. Great. Let's get into high stance. Now, there isn't that much room for customization here, and that's one of my criticisms of the Dual Swords as a weapon, but that's a whole separate topic. Here you've got two choices. I'm going with Spinning Dragon simply because it's from Ninja Gaiden. That's it. I don't care about any of the other reasons. It's Ninja Gaiden, I'm going to put it in there. Sign of the Cross, no choice. Here you have a couple choices. So as with the high stance only stuff, Windstorm versus Water Sword. I generally don't like abilities like Water Sword that just, you just stand in one place and spam an attack. So that's why I don't use it, although it can be a lot of fun for people. Instead, I'm going to use Windstorm because it's just a cool ability. You have no choice for Raijin, you have no choice for Winter Wind. So yeah, there isn't really many options you have. Mid stance, no choice God of Wind, no choice Sign of the Cross. You got 4 parries here. Yeah, I used to use Earthly Flow a lot in Nioh 1, but now with burst attacks it doesn't work as well as I'd like it to. Punish the Proud is hilarious, but it's human only. Piercing Wheel works on skills, but again, human only. Demon Thrust works on basically any attack no matter what it is, and you can sequence attacks right after. So I've been using Demon Thrust, even though in Nioh 1 I hated it. Here we've got parries and parries. I'm going to use the easier parry. I have thought of replacing this with one of the Sacred Bird abilities. I still might, because I try not to parry too often, and it's really not that important for my style of play anymore. I don't actually use Random Slice because it's kind of annoying when I want to dodge while I'm blocking. Instead, I'll do Random Slice and it'll throw me up. If it was, throw me off. If it was in high stance, I would easily put Random Slice there. But I may need to give this another chance given the fact that you can cancel like anything using a Soul Core. So I may revisit using Random Slice. Moonshadow, no choice. Raijin, no choice. Winter Wind, no choice. Like, again, you don't really have many options for variation with Dual Swords. Here I'm going to put Dual Dragon because it's low stance only and it's cool. Sign of the Cross, no choice. Moonshadow, no choice. Double-Headed Slice, no choice. And then the only Dual Sword ability I haven't used is Mortal Flow, so I'll put that here. Raijin, no choice. Winter Wind, no choice. There's like very little options, and that's pretty much it when it comes to Dual Swords. Next is Spear, in which there is a good degree of customization. When it comes to Grapple versus Merciless Barrage, well, I'm going to take the flashier one since they more or less function very similarly. When it comes to Mystic Arts, you can see I didn't even purchase Fluidity because I don't need it, because I can Spear Flourish and Rainbow Ruse on demand anyway. Stability just basically boosts the overall power, I suppose, of the Spear, so I'm going to stick with that. On to High Stance. You've got a few options. I'm going to go with the high stance only things. So you have Spearfall and Piercing Rain. Piercing Rain doesn't get as much love from most people as Spearfall does. So I'm going to go with Piercing Rain simply because it's more niche. That's really about it. Here you've got a few options, but I'm going with the high stance only option, which is Windmill, which I know is antithetical to my whole, hey, I don't like abilities that you know, do and spam the same thing over and over and over again. Windmill seems to be an exception for me because it's a lot harder to use than, say, Water Sword. It's weird. Again, there's no hard, steadfast rule that I have. It's entirely subjective, and this, again, not based on any sense of optimization. Resounding Lunge is no choice. No choice there. No choice there. And here, I have yet to mess with Fatal's Thrust. I like Wild Spear from Nioh 1. Even if you can't cancel recovery frames, I still like it a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's flashy. Next is Mid Stance. I'm going to go with the Mid Stance only choice, which is Water Wheel. I've seen other players use Pole Kick, which is cool, but I like Water Wheel because it's harder to work with and looks cool to me. That's pretty much it. I don't use Chidori because, I don't know. I think I just like Water Wheel more. That's really about it. Here, there are many, many choices. I can't give up Triple Threat. Triple Threat is so good. So, I know I could use Entangle. I know I could use Twirl. But they're parries, and they're pretty much human-specific. So, I'm going to go with the thing that can work in every scenario, which is Triple Threat. Which is one of the best abilities in the entire game, in my opinion. Next, Mid Stance. So, I've already counted for Resounding Lunge. So, it's either going to be Body Swap, which unfortunately is human-specific, and Bracing Breeze, which is also human specific. I alternate between the two, but Bracing Breeze is amazing. I mean, I didn't think we'd get this as an actual ability, so I'm very happy to use it. Twisting Spear, no choice. I don't use either of these abilities in mid stance. I might try it, and for the same reasons that I do, that I may want to try Random Slice for dual swords, but that's something I have to revisit. But yeah, that's it, unfortunately, in mid-stance. When it comes to low stance, so Tornado has the longest animation and is really cool. So I like it. It works for my combos and low stance spear anyway. I credit that to White Goat. Spear Bash, no choice. Flying Monkey, no choice. Here, I haven't accounted for Spear Shove, so I'm going to use that. No choice for Backslash because it's a low stance only. And then Rainbow Ruse I'm going to use. And notice I have actually given it less key consumption because I use it as a reposition and it already kind of uses a lot of key. So that's why it's there. I should actually give this Masterful Slice since Spear Bash is predominantly used for key damage. Alright, Rainbow Ruse, Twisting Spear. Again, you don't really have choices here. And then I don't put anything in low stance. Next is Axe. So Axe has very little customization, but it's hilariously fun for me. When it comes to the Mystic Arts, honestly neither of these really matter to me, but I'll take the one that applies to most scenarios as opposed to something that's conditional, which is why I pick Intensity. I can at least control more easily when my key is going to be 0 or below, as opposed to having to look for a Yokai Realm. Alright, when it comes to high stance, I'm going to take Lumber Chop because it's a baseball bat move and it's hilarious, and it's high stance only. That's why it's there. I'm always using Lumber Chop no matter what. Heaven and Earth, no choice. Here you've got a few options, but with the axe skills I put Bear's Bane on top. And I don't care for any of the sheathed abilities whatsoever. It doesn't matter to me. Here I pick Tri-Spark because it's mid stance only. So that's why it's going there. Here it's kind of tough. I wish I could use Southpaw as well. But High Kick into Tidebringer is so delicious because it gives a great amount of forward momentum to a weapon that needs it. So I like High Kick a lot. Here's where I actually decided to use Sacred Bird Flight. It's kind of perfect for the Axe. Axe has a little trouble with motion. So yeah, after like a Lumber Chop, I knock an enemy away and then use Sacred Bird Flight to catch up to them. It's pretty sick. I'm actually using Spirit Storm here because ever since abilities like Spinning Slide, which I'll get to, I don't really feel the need to use Spirit Wind. But Spirit Wind is pretty nice. Spirit Storm is pretty fun for humans, especially since you can cancel some recovery frames by dodging. That's pretty cool. I have recently I'm trying Roar. I haven't really been able to fit it into my combo stuff yet, but I'm gonna experiment. So I used to use Stone Mallet because it does a ton of key damage against guarding enemies, but Roar is also pretty meme-tastic, so I'm gonna mess around with it a bit more. Spinning Slide, no choice. It's absolutely awesome. The fact that you can switch your stances while you're doing the sidestep, and then do that respective stances. Hold triangle ability is pretty whack, so it's sick. I don't use sheathed abilities. So next up is low stance. Here is where I've been alternating between various things. For the most part, I've been using Rumbling Earth because I never used it in Nioh 1. I used to use Earth Carver, and I may go back to using Earth Carver because of Spinning Slide, in which the Earth Carver just feels so damn fast. Rampage is also a lot of fun too, but I have yet to really give this a fair shot. And then I don't really care for Mad Spinner, even though it's hilarious, because it functions in the same way to me as Water Sword does. Cloud Crush versus these three options. I mean, it's cool, but Cloud Crush can just yeet enemies away anyway, so I'm going to take that. It's a low stance only, so it fits. Titanic Strength goes here because I've already accounted for Bear's Bane, and I'm using Sacred Bird Flight in mid stance. And that's it for the axe. Next up is Kusarigama. When it comes to the Mystic Art, I know many people like Shooting Star, so to be stupidly contrarian, I will use Waxing Crescent. No, it's not because I spam Reaper. For anyone who thought I do. So, you have no choice for Serpent Strike. No choice for Deliverance. Here you've got way too many choices. But let me go through each of them. I don't use Reaper for the same reason I don't like to use Water Sword. Foot Sweep is human specific, so I don't care for it. Crimson Flurry can apply to everything, so I'll use that. Leaping Strike I use in mid stance, and I'll show you when I get there. Bird of Prey, it's strange that there is a riposte sort of parry, but I don't use it because it's, I gotta test it out. Maybe it'd be cool to use against yokai, but in all honesty, Crimson Flurry just applies in every scenario. I can use it pretty much no matter what. And then Renegade Dragon I use in low stance, but I'll get to that when I get there. Two choices. I have Blade Spin here because I don't like to have my key damage stuff in high stance. Deadly Mark, no choice. I don't use the sheath abilities. Here, I'm already accounted for Deliverance, so Tangle Strike is going to go here. As simple as that. Here, you've got a bunch of choices too. You've got Serpent Bite. But, come on, Leaping Strike into Water Drop is so cool, so I'm going to use that. I used to use Waterfall, but yeah, I don't really need to given the timely guards that are available. Here I've got a few choices. I've already accounted for Blade Spin, so I'm going to use Whirlwind Kick, and as you can see, I've actually given it more key damage. Pretty sick. Black Vines, I use Black Vines over Deadly Mark because I'm already using Deadly Mark in high stance. And you got Masterful Guard, and I don't use the sheath ability. Now when it comes to low stance, I've already accounted for Tangle Strike and Deliverance, so I'm going to use Retreating Strike. It is that simple. Now here I've got a couple of choices, but I don't like Reaper. I've already accounted for Leaping Strike. I don't really feel the need for either of these, so I'm going to use Renegade Dragon because it is absolutely delicious to use. Here I've got Whirlwind, which now has Second Wind, courtesy of the hidden skill from Aquaman, so I'm going to use that. And it's either that or Chain Pull. Chain Pull is really fast, which is a lot of fun, but yeah, I like Whirlwind more, and I've already accounted for these two. Here, it doesn't really matter what I pick, so I just use Black Vines. And that's pretty much it for Kusarigama. Next is the Odachi. Again, when it comes to the grapple, or a Dragon Horn, I'm going to go with the faster option, which is the grapple. And I can actually combo with the grapple. Usually I like to follow up with 2 high stance attacks right after a grapple into Twin Moons, so it functions pretty well for me. And then when it comes to the Mystic Arts, I use this because, surprise, surprise, it reduces key consumption when I use either Waking Winds or Sunset Breeze. And I use Sunset Breeze a lot, so it works really well. I don't use any of the Waking Wind abilities whatsoever. I use Twin Moons because it's high stance specific. It's that simple. Now for square enders, I use Sunset Breeze Earth because I like to go from high stance to low stance. That's pretty much it. I don't know why it's called Sunset Breeze Earth 1. It implies there's like a Sunset Breeze Earth 2. I don't know. It's weird. Here, I don't care for clarity at all. And I certainly don't want to move any more slowly. So I'm going to go with Imperative Strike, because it's Imperative Strike. Here you've got a couple of choices. I use Groundquake. I associate it as like a really heavy hitting ability, so I put it in high stance. Here, I used to use Crashing Waves, but I've recently been messing around with Thunderbolt simply because it's Nioh. I had Undaunted, but I like never used it because I really didn't care for it. So Thunderbolt, yeah, kind of weird, but I'm just messing around with it. Devastating Rush and High Stance because I associate it as a strong-ish ability. Alright, mid stance. Got a couple of options. I don't like the Waking Winds abilities because I can't really sequence into them. But more importantly, I would lose out the abilities to do abilities like Charging Bull, which while I know it doesn't apply to every situation like Tail Strike can, Charging Bull is just pure disrespect against human enemies, so I will use it, and it's pretty sick. Here I like to go to Sunset Breeze Heaven, so I go from mid stance to low stance simply because I do a lot of combos that way. So I'll usually do a strong, and as the tooltip video suggests, that's kind of how I will use it. Imperative Strike because it's either that or Clarity. I don't care for Clarity. Here I've got a couple of choices. Retrograde Flow is disrespectful, so I'm going to use that. And what I like to do is Retrograde Flow into a strong attack, and then go into high stance from there. And so it works really well. Cuckoo's Call is mid-stance specific, so it's automatically going here. Swirling Snow goes here because I've already accounted for Devastating Rush in high stance. Bolting Boar, no choice. Here I've got a couple of options, but I never got to use Swallow's Wing on the Odachi in Nioh 1, so I'm using it now in Nioh 2, and it's a lot of fun. Sunset Breeze Heaven because I also go from low stance to high stance very frequently. Mid stance not so much. I sometimes will swap this out. It just kind of depends what I'm feeling. Tiger's Blade, no choice. Imperative Strike yet again. Now here I used to have Moonlit Snow, which is obviously really, really freaking powerful. But then there's Moonlit Snow Redux, which even if it isn't nearly as powerful, is lightning fast. So I'm going to go with something that's lightning fast. Power is not that much of a concern as much as speed is to me. Crashing Waves because I haven't accounted for that yet. And then Swirling Snow and low stance, which I don't care for the damage, so I reduced its ki consumption. Pretty sick. You know, speaking of doing extra ki damage, maybe I should do what Kage does, which is give this Masterful Slice. There we go. I hope he is proud. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Odachi. Next up is Tonfa. Tonfa, I use Kanagi. This is very intentional. I didn't even purchase Apocalypse because being able to cancel out of a Tonfa technique is nuts. Tonfa has lots of long animations, and so being able to cancel them at will allows some of the coolest play ever. Being able to turn your defense into offense is one of Tonfa's major specialties. Alright, so high stance. I've changed this up recently, but I'm putting Devastation now because I want to mess with being able to explode enemies when I've got Tonfa Gun out. So yeah, it used to be Shove, and that was because of Blast to Load, or as you may know him, Sacred Force, and it helped him with efficient combos and whatnot for a lot of zero key combos, but I'm straying away from that, and now I'm messing around with Devastation. I put Heavenly Chain in high stance because it works well for me. Mountain Breaker versus Urgency. I used to use Urgency almost all the time. Now I've been messing around with Mountain Breaker because it opens up interesting options, and plus being able to hop over your enemies is kind of hilarious. Alright, Wild Lions, no choice. Demon Dance, no choice. Here I put Focus Strike because I associate it as a longer animation that's harder hitting compared to, say, Storm Strikes, which, while is really cool, is a bit faster. So that's that. Mid stance I put, as with other weapons, I put key damage based things, so Shove is going to go here, and I put Masterful Slice on it. I've already accounted for Heavenly Chain, which is why I'm using Crimson Lotus, and I'm still experimenting with this, but I think mid stance is where I'd like it. Here I've got Thousand Tongues, which doesn't unfortunately apply to yokai. If it did, I would consider it, but Tiger Bite is so damn good, so I'm going to use that. Wild Lions, no choice. Demon Dance, no choice. Focus Strike here for the same reasons I have it in high stance. I do not put Fleetfoot in mid stance. There have been too many moments where I have tried to do fancy play with mid-stance Tonfas, and Fleetfoot throws me off. So I have Fleetfoot in low stance. Impenetrability, no choice. Alright, low stance for the Tonfa. I've already accounted for Devastation. I'm going to use Sweeping Kick. So that's why that goes there. Here I put Heavenly Chain because I prioritize combo stuff over explosive damage, courtesy of Crimson Lotus. Here I'm going to use Double Kick because it's low stance only. Wild Lines, no choice. Demon Dance, no choice. And then I've already used Focus Strikes, so Storm of Strikes is going here instead. And then Fleetfoot because it makes sense for me. Low stance is my primary dodge stance, so I have Fleetfoot here. Next up is Hatchets. You've got pretty much no choice with any of these, so you're going to have the same stuff for the universal things. When it comes to the Mystic Arts, it's either Train Throw, which does damage, which means I'm pretty much not going to worry about it, versus Tireless Throw, which at the very least, while it is damage-based, makes it so that my Hatchets don't suffer any distance penalty, which I like. But if you're on Wise difficulty or above, if you get the Mystic Art, or sorry, the Mystic Dyad, it doesn't really matter anyway. Alright, let's go to the stances. No choice for Lethal Barrage. Here you've got a couple options. I've already accounted for Deadly Spiral and mid-stance, which we'll get to. So when it comes to the throws, it's either one that increases the distance of the throw, or in my case, I'm going to go for reduced charge time in a heartbeat. Anything that allows me to speed up gameplay, I will take. Here, well, the only unique Hatchet ability is Demon Undercut, which does a massive amount of key damage, so I put more key damage on it with Masterful Slice. Here, I will use Dragonfly because it's high mid-stance only. Dual Hawks I put in low stance, which you'll see when I get there. Here, I don't care for all ablaze. I generally don't use a lot of these sheathed abilities that don't actually do anything actively combat as opposed to just buffs. I'm not very interested in just buffs. Because it's high stance, I'm going to go for the heavy hitting sheathed ability, Grease Lightning. Okay, mid stance is very interesting, and I am actually liable to change this up. I used to use Bellringer because it felt very similar to me as... It felt similar to how Shove did for Tonfa. Then I saw a streamer, Soothsayer, he actually was using Mountain Hawk, and Mountain Hawk is supremely fast, and so I've gravitated to that because of speed. Recently, I am actually a bit more interested in Death from Above because I've gotten a lot more familiar with the flow of combat, so I may give this a chance. I am not sure. But it's still cool regardless that you have 3 very meaningful choices that are all really good. I love when there are meaningful choices like that. For here, you may be surprised that I'm not using Spiked Wall, because Spiked Wall requires me to be blocking, and then I can pull this off. I mean, it'd be cool to work with this with like Akala's Grace when you get the Rock Solid buff, but again, that's a very niche use. So I don't really care about Spiked Wall, even though it is really, really good. I instead use Sacred Bird Flight. I may even trade this out with Sacred Bird Fly. This is one of the slots I may switch out. I'm not really sure. Here I've already accounted for Dragonfly, so Heaven's Clash is mid-stance only, so that's why it goes there. Wolf's Rage, no choice. Here, it's a matter of either Dual Hurls or Deadly Spiral. Well, Deadly Spiral is gorgeous to look at, and I find that Heaven's Clash and Dual Hurl kind of look similar to me, even though I know they function differently. So I'm going to use Deadly Spiral instead, because it's fucking Deadly Spiral. Foul Shaker, no choice. I use Grease Lightning because for me, I'm going to put Boulder Breaker in low stance. So that's why Grease Lightning goes here. Alright, low stance. You don't have too many choices here either. Spinning Crab. Eagle Shadow for me is low stance specific and it's really awesome, so I'm using it. Dual Hawks only goes here anyway, so that's why it's there. Pulse Rage, no choice. I've already accounted for Deadly Spiral, so I'm going to use Chain Hurl because it's low stance only. Mountain Climber, no choice. Biting Hail with less ki consumed. So I had Demon Undercut, which already does a ton of ki damage, gets Masterful Slice to do even more ki damage, and then something that eats up a lot of ki, Biting Hail. Well, now I'm using it to consume less ki, which is great. And then Boulder Breaker goes here because I've already accounted for Grease Lightning, and Boulder Breaker is just so cool for a lot of speedy play. That's pretty much that for Hatchets. Next up is Switchglaive. Yeah, I don't care for the buff. I'm gonna go for Thin Air. So yeah, that's why I use that. Here, either get more damage or use less ki so I can play more. So I'm gonna use less ki when I can play more. Of course, this is redundant if you have Mystic Dyad on the Switchglaive, but yeah, I don't have that. And I don't really need it. Alright, so high stance. I used to use Mortal Retribution because it was the only option. But then they introduced Cyclone. So yeah, Cyclone's going there. No choice. No choice. I used to use Infinite Retribution because I had no choice. And then I tried using the Sacred Bird abilities. But then there's Arc of Chaos. So I'm using Arc of Chaos because it's high stance only and it's super good. This is a meaningful choice. I use Divine Retribution because it's more stylish and more troll to go over enemies with it. Entry Retribution is an amazing attack and really powerful, but it kind of got dry. I find a lot more fun use out of Divine Retribution, so that's why I use it. Here there's a couple of choices. I use Merciful Retribution because it's faster than Focused Retribution, but I haven't given Focused Retribution a chance in a long time. Here you got no choice, so let's get to mid stance. Mid stance I've already accounted for Cyclone, so I'm going to use Mind's Edge, which works well. No choice, no choice. Few choices here. I used to use Windswept because it has a really wide arc for hitting all sorts of things. But I've really grown attached to Just Reprisal because of the properties of Switchglaive. Being able to do Just Reprisal into a switch stance ability actually feels really damn good. It's so fun. So it's one of those rare cases of parries that can apply to both humans and yokai that can quickly turn a defensive option into an offensive option. So I really actually like it. Here it's between Blinding Edge, which is more of a proactive move even if it's slower, compared to Tranquil Edge, which does work on pretty much any attack, but I've been switching them out. I'm trying to get more familiar with Blinding Edge. Tranquil Edge I can use all the time, but Blinding Edge I'm trying to learn it. Fleeting Edge versus Path of 3. Well, Fleeting Edge is mid stance only, so it's automatically going here, and with the recent buffs to it in patch 1.22, it's super fast now, so I really like it. Alright, low stance. You've got Transient Blade, which I had no choice before to use, but now there's Kibosh Kicker, which is hilariously awesome. And it's low stance only, and it's fun, so I'm using that. No choice with the switch stance abilities. When it comes to this slot, I honestly want to use Lightning Blade. I really do, but it only works against humans, so I'm going to go with the low stance option that works in all scenarios, which is Calamitous Blade. But dude, if Lightning Blade worked against yokai, I would use this in a heartbeat. It's so good looking. It's so damn good looking. Okay, and then Whirling Blade I think is a little redundant given that I have Yatamir, but still cool. So I use Skyward Blade instead. Here I use Path of 3 because it's the only option available, and I just don't want to consume much ki, so I put Nimble Slice. Where should I put... Should I give Cyclone Heights? Should I give it... I don't know. I don't need to worry about Arcanas right now. But, yeah, pretty cool. So that's pretty much it for Switchglaive. Next up is Splitstaff. When it comes to the Mystic Arts, you see this, I see greater damage, I'm uninterested. Instead, I want more hits because there's more shit I can do. So that's why I picked this Mystic Art. Seesaw Strike is high stance only, that's why it goes here. No choice. Here you've got a couple of options. I don't like Dragon Dance for the same reason I don't like abilities like Reaper. I used to use... What did I used to use? Oh, well actually... I think it was pretty much always this, right? Unless I don't think I had Shapeshift Strike up here. Oh yeah, I actually used to use Sacred Bird Flight because I didn't want to use Dragon Dance. But I decided to put Roar Power here because it fits the long animation high power move. So Roar Power goes here. Here I used to have Unruly Revolution, but then Heron Kick got released. So now I put Twin Phoenix because it's a long animation, huge power move. So Twin Phoenix goes up there. Serpent Streep in high stance for the same reason. I have Wild Spear in high stance for the spear. Radiant Moon, no choice. And what else? Here I've got a few choices. Shin Crusher, Fill the Void. I put Fill the Void because it's more situational, even though Shin Crusher is a key damage ability and would generally fit my theme of mid-stance having that type of stuff. I put Fill the Void here. And there is another reason which I'll explain when I get to low stance. Ebb and Flow, no choice. Here you've got a bunch of options. Believe it or not, I was using Shock Stopper for a short period of time. But then Changing Ways got released, and Changing Ways is amazing, so I'm using that. Heron Kick, because Heron Kick is an amazing ability. The ability to just like lunge at your opponent, catch enemies that are backdashing, and be able to punish them like that is just gorgeous, so I'm using this. I don't use Serpent Sweep in mid stance or in low stance. Radiant Moon, no choice. Def Counter, no choice. And then low stance. So I'm already using Fill the Void, so I'm using Shin Crusher, which does a ton of key damage, and then I gave it even more key damage with Masterful Slice. Now the reason why I have this in low stance over it being in mid stance is because the mid stance quick attack for Splitstaff is kind of weird. It's like 2 hits and for 1 button press, whereas the low stance attack, low stance quick, is just a single hit that's already pretty damn fast. And so what I like to do is an evasion attack, a dodge attack in low, then another quick, and then I'll do Shin Crusher, and it's just something that's very familiar to me now. Ebb and Flow, no choice. Here I've got a couple of options, but I've already accounted for these two, so I'll go for Shapeshift Strike, which is cool. Side Splitter is in low stance because it does more hits in low stance. Mid stance has greater range, but in low stance, Side Splitter has more hits. And then I'm already using Twin Phoenix and Heron Kick, so that's why this goes here. Don't use Serpent Sweep. Got no choice for Radiant Moon. Got no choice for Darting Cloud. And yes, I actually do use Darting Cloud, even though I know it can throw people off. Last but not least, Fists. So, Fists, I'm using Azuna Drop for the same reason I am using the Swords Azuna Drop. It's Ninja Gaiden. Why the hell wouldn't I? I didn't even get the other Mystic Art, because I don't care about stacks as much as you might think. I go for key consumption, because I want to attack more. Now when it gets to high stance, I'm going to take the high stance only, Fist of Reckoning, so that's why it goes here. Battering Ram, no choice. Here you've got a couple of options. Defensive Drop I put in low stance, so Spinning Kick goes up here. That's pretty much it. Wolf Claw, I don't actually care for the anima gain that much, but it's cool. This is actually a tough choice. Limitless is awesome. Been using it for the longest time, and it's a lot of fun to use. But with Beyond Infinity, it's kind of hard to put it down, and Beyond Infinity feels very satisfying to nail. And I'm sure anyone who's used the ability would highly agree. I mean, come on. Stomp's cool and all, but then there's Beyond Infinity. Here, Rising Gale, no choice. Here, you got no choice for Kick Cycle. Mid stance, I find Knife Hand Strike more situational as an attack compared to Fractured Foe, which I can use in way too many scenarios. Battering Ram, no choice. Here, it's actually pretty difficult. I really like Takedown, but again, it doesn't apply to everything. It applies to humans, and it's absolutely amazing, but Opportunist is basically allowing me to Royal Guard everything, so I'm going to use that. But it's still a lot of fun to try other stuff. Here, it's a matter of Reckless Charge versus Stomp. I like Reckless Charge, so I go with that. Rising Gale here, Archer's Impact because I've already accounted for Kick Cycle. Low stance, I put Fracture Foe here as opposed to Knife Hand Strike because I'm using Knife Hand Strike in mid stance. Iron Grip, even though I know many players don't like it, well, hey, might as well use the slot up. Here, I put Defensive Drop because there's already natural support to go into Defensive Drop in low stance after you do 2 strong attacks. So it just kind of fit the theme for me here. So that's why it's here. But maybe I'll change it. I don't know. And again, I've already explained why I don't care for Wolf Claw. Ocean Zephyr is just fun for me to use, and it's low stance only, so that's why it goes here. At some point, I may try Stomp as a brief interrupt, but I don't know if I really care for that. I certainly don't care for the fact that it increases the power of my next skill. Like, I don't care for that. Flying Fist, no choice. Rising Gale, no choice. And then I'm already accounted for Kick Cycle, and so therefore there's Archer's Impact. which I'm gonna use because it's low stance only, I guess. So there's that. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist when it comes to all my skills. Man, that was a really long recording. But bottom line, here, let me, before I do my bottom lines, I'll just have Beyond Infinity on loop so you can ogle at it the whole time. Bottom line, I pick the skills that I do because I think it's most fun in the slots that I have it in. I'm still not 100% cemented with where everything goes, and I have changed them out from time to time to see if it can help me discover new ways to have a crazy combat flow. But bottom line, it's gonna really be up to you. If you see something that you think will work better for you, by all means do that. Like, please do what's fun for you. I personally find a lot of enjoyment in doing as many different things as possible, experiencing all the different variety, finding new cool ways to interact with combat, and hopefully you can do that as well. In any case, I don't really know what else to say in regards to this. Hopefully I gave you enough information. If you got any questions or if I missed anything, just let me know in the comments and I will get to them as soon as I can. In any case, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all your support, and I will see you guys next time.